HarperCollins presents this unabridged reading of Kiwi Country, Rural New Zealand in 100 Objects by Narrator and Ruth Spencer. Narrated by Narrator and Ruth Spencer. Introduction. We called it the pig shed because, long before I was born, my grandfather had kept pigs in it. Then the way milk was collected from dairy farms changed and the pigs were moved out, probably to the meat safe. Bits of broken or obsolete agricultural equipment were moved in, just in case we ever needed them again. Whenever my father was partway through a project, he'd often stop, stand up, look at the piece of machinery he was repairing or building, and simply say, "Pig shed." We'd fossick about among horseshoes, harnesses, old ploughs, various cylinders, coils of wire, pumps, lengths of pipe, taps, boxes of bolts, axles and shovels. Dad would eventually turn up the thing he'd remembered was there, or something that he'd forgotten was there that was better than what he'd been looking for. Clearly, everything in there had once served a purpose. You could see the wear and tear of long use. Some of those objects are in this book, each marking a moment in time and technology that reveals something about rural life. Kiwi Country is in no way the official story of rural New Zealand. These are the 100 things that tickled our fancies and that we felt allowed us to tell important or interesting stories about the innovative, practical folk who have always made up our rural culture. Because a book about objects is really a book about the people who created and used them. These are also stories with personal connections. My great-grandfather was a road builder who ran teams of horses. Another was a deer culler for a time. One grandfather, while farming, had a side hustle as a courier, among other things, delivering cream cans to separator stations. And all of them would have used 303s in wartime service. My grandmother was in the Country Women's Institute, and my mother milked cows while also managing to fill enormous quantities of AG jars with the best peaches I've ever tasted. Ruth spent long weekends with her family on a Marlborough sheep station, where she learnt to shoot rifles, love border collies, appreciate river swimming, and not eat raw quince. She's worked in orchards and pack houses. Her people too have a lineage of isolated rural living, wrangling cows and mangles and heritage apples. There's not one of these objects that doesn't have a personal connection to us in one way or another. Some of these objects we took for granted, never thinking too deeply about them. I cannot begin to tell you how many trig stations I've seen perched on top of hills, having no idea of their history. I've never really considered the way eggs are packed, or wine bottles capped, or who thought of making 44-gallon drums. Other things we did know about because of various personal encounters or projects over the years. War memorial halls, the Taranaki hedge cutters, meat safes and sand saucers. Hopefully, you'll pause the next time you see one of these objects and, having read this book, know a little bit more about what it does and why it's there and who used it and how. Or you might look at something you use every day and ask, what do you reckon the story is behind this? The sections of this book are organised in the same way a farm generally is. When you first arrive, you pull up at the homestead. It's flanked by the paddocks, and there's generally an orchard behind. You head past various livestock on your way to the shed and the cowshed beyond. The creek runs around the back of the farm and past it are the slopes and bush of the back blocks. You come back around to the house for smoko and eventually leave via the gravel road. There's no pig shed chapter, although there are several stories about pigs, because, like many of the items in this book, our pig shed is now gone. Although recently, my father was restoring his father's original truck to factory new from a rusted chassis, a few pieces of bent panel work and an engine block. He stood up, looked at some damaged or missing part and said, "You know, I'm pretty sure we had one of those in the pig shed. Probably should have kept it." Narrator. Section 1. Homestead. Dunny. For a convenience, the dunny isn't particularly convenient. A trek along overgrown pavers to a makeshift malodorous shack has long been part of the daily routine of rural life. Through rain, through the gloom of night, through the biting cold of a frost. As the door bangs behind you and the hail plays a symphony on the rusted,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?